Releasing repressed emotions, how we can identify and assist our clients to release emotions held in the body while regulating both their nervous systems and our own. So this is who I am, Mari Muller, and I've had over 35 years background in healing and bodywork, and I have also done a lot of spiritual healing, metaphysics, and my PI is actually short for postural integration, which became structural integration. So that's what I have done, a lot of deep tissue work along those lines. And I've kept in practice all of these years. I still am in private practice. And I think that's a wonderful place when you're expressing different educational information that you are still in practice yourself. So I'm hoping that you're going to enjoy what unfolds this evening. And I'm also the current director of the Psychosomatic Therapy College. We are a registered training organisation based in Australia on the Gold Coast. And my husband, Herman, who passed 6 years ago, created a psychosomatic therapy training. So the body mapping that we use is something that he has put together, was inspired with his work and his knowledge of both mental health, sports, and having a background in sports, working in mental health, in the field of mental health in the late 70s in Australia, and also very much into metaphysics. And growing up in India, he had a lot of knowledge about the Vedic system. So basically, the alignment that we use and acknowledging that, you know, where we're sitting, that wherever we are in the world and whatever time it is for you when you watch this, that you take a moment to connect with the land and acknowledge the custodians of the land in your area and the ancestors past, present and emerging, and respecting the sacredness of where you are finding yourself. And the diagram that we have on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen is a practice that we've used in psychosomatic therapy for over 30 years. We've actually been going in this work since the late 80s, so we've got a long history. And this is working with the 3 rays of divine will, love, wisdom, and active intelligence. So as we're working with those 3 rays, it actually comes into the focus, balance, and structure. That are the 3 keys of psychosomatic therapy. So we're focusing our thoughts. So when you use mind focus or mindfulness, we're using the power of our mind, and our minds do actually, if they're somewhat working well for us, they do know how to instruct or to follow instructions. So by focusing our minds and bringing our thought into this present moment, the power of now, as we understand, is so important. We can harness those emotional sensations as we breathe and activate our feelings to get excited about things. And the active intelligence is actually acting on it. So coming back to ourselves, coming back to our bodies, listening to our bodies, listening to our inner teacher, our intuition, our inner tutor, and then taking action. So intention is really a very, very important thing with our work. So some people say to me, how long have you actually worked in this field? And as you know, I've said I actually graduated in 1986 in remedial massage. So I've been in this field for that long. And one of the reasons that I can still maintain, I believe, being in this field is because I'm aware of myself in the act of what I'm doing with my clients. So with that presence, so that's really the key. And if you want to take it further, this powerful sacred geometrical formation that we've got down here, the tetrahedron, the three-dimensional triangle, you can place yourself in the middle of that. So why don't we just give it a go, give it a whirl. So if you place yourself in the middle of that three-dimensional triangle, and you can make that as large as you feel comfortable. So it's honoring your space and the environmental space that's around you. And you can also place your client in this because it's simply aligning to their soul. And at the apex, we imagine a magnificent sphere of energy, a ball of light. We usually visualize it or imagine it to be white light, pure white light. So that everything that comes within your sacred space, within your three-dimensional triangle of light, or crystal triangle if you prefer, or liquid crystal if you prefer that, everything that comes within your sacred space must come through the apex. That's your intention. That's what you're pre-setting. It's a thought form of your creation, and you can practice it every morning and every night before you go to sleep. You can practice it throughout the day, reinforcing it around you. And also each time you can pre-program it that each of the clients that you have this day have a three-dimensional triangle of light ready for them. Your intention in doing this is that you are aligned to your highest good or your soul, to your highest intelligence, to your high vibe, and that you're also working with their soul. They're under the jurisdiction of their soul, and it's always a grace to work with someone else. It is such a privilege to be in someone else's field. So this is a way of respecting that, honoring yourself, respecting yourself, your energies, and also respecting theirs. The body is a history book of everything that we know, everything that we've experienced, and our reactions and our responses to those things. And it's very exciting how much more information's out there globally now, especially with all the trauma information. And we're realizing that so much of this is going on through the layers of the body. So much goes on in our formation. So we say information in our formation. And that can go right back to our childhood. It can go even to our time in the womb, can go into the trauma of birth. So being the sensitive little beings that we all are truly, and that we're innocent. In fact, I like to think of the body like a child that we're learning once again to speak to kindly, to encourage, to feed well, to rest, and to love, because it's so important to us. It's the only expression our souls truly have in this world, and the only opportunity through this vehicle that we have to contribute, to make a difference. So it can happen in our bone formation. There are certain things that different people go through in a genetic sense, but we're just going to look at layers that can be held in the tissue, in the muscle tissue, in the fascia, and also in the organs. So if we think about those things, we won't have time tonight to go into the depths of that, but I really wanted to give some specific points when we're talking about releases. So as you can see in this one, this release point here in the masseter muscle releases the jaw and the upper neck. It's very easy to get to. You can do it on yourself. You can do it on your clients. They're all tonic muscles, the ones that I've given you, meaning that they're involved in holding the actual structure or posture of the body. And tonic muscles are used to being able to have an extraordinary amount of tension and hold on to that tension. So one of the things in emotional release bodywork is the fact that these muscles get switched on and they hold and hold and hold. They're like a fist in our minds that we haven't, or a dog with a bone, that we haven't learned how to relax it, how to let it go. So it needs the off switch. It needs to be able to soften to get the tone back into that tonic muscle instead of the ropey, hard, tough band that we often feel. If someone is really locking their jaw very, very hard, and you can try and do that yourself right now, just as tight as you possibly can. And just notice where that tension transfers into your own face or into your own upper body. Particularly can transfer up into the occipital area at the base of the skull. So the upper neck, the base of the skull, correct, it goes right up. If we really clench our jaw, oftentimes we'll get headaches from it. So it can go up into this area here. And a super useful thing to remember is that oftentimes someone might have their head forward. So given that this can transfer into the back of the neck, it can transfer up. We actually have zones on the face that we work with, which is the mental zone, the emotional zone from the eyebrows to the bottom of the nose, and the physical. So when we're getting into this emotional release point here, it's in the physical. And so looking at the face, we can see our relationship with the physical is already becoming, if there's tension here, an uncomfortable place or a painful experience. So mentally and emotionally, now it's gone into the physical. And that sends that biofeedback message that, you know, life isn't as comfortable or as pleasant as it could be or maybe meant to be. So it's also the last release point. So when we're talking about emotional releases, it's the last place that we can hold back. So when we're little children, most of us would have had some feedback from our cultural family environment of whether it was appropriate to show sadness or appropriate to show frustration or anger. And if we haven't been able to really, truly express ourselves, our authentic self, then this can be part of this process of what's going on here. It can also, another thing that can cause it is that with our beautiful sensitivity, the mind doesn't feel, the body feels. So with all of that emotion in the body, or i.e. pain in the body, that we haven't been able to process as children, if it starts to stir up, it's going to come up into the body, and we'd like to really express that, express how we feel. But if we haven't been heard as children, this is another part of the holding back that can happen here if we haven't been encouraged, or how we've spoken. The feedback we got might have been, you know, we overshared, we were too loud, we're too much energy. What we had to say wasn't important, you know. Sit down, shut up, be quiet. So many different things. So this point releases the jaw and the upper neck. And you can, if it's tight, I would encourage that there is a certain amount of pressure that's actually used on that. Because once someone starts to have a release, you can go lightly and gently. Sometimes having a more gentle approach can be more effective for people that are or can be very hard and tough on themselves. But if it's gone quite numb, you know, until there's an extra pressure put on there, they don't realize just how much tension's actually held in that area. Sticking your tongue out, blowing raspberries, all of those exercises. Ha, making a sound, different sounds, singing really starts to open this area up. So it's very common when our mind is so active that we tend to keep this area of our body shut, of our face shut. So we think with our mouth, we lock our jaws, and, you know, it's like, shut up, the mind's thinking. We've all got to listen to the mind. It's a lot of tension that starts around that area, or that results around that area. Emotional release point number 2. This is a point that as body workers, you would have seen many, many times, whether it's in the Chinese acupuncture or acupressure, or in trigger point body work. It's such a common area, even in just general remedial massage. We would say you carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. The skull itself weighs so roughly it's about 4 kilos, I believe, could be 4 or 5 kilos. So if we've got our head slightly tilted, you know, whether to the left, to the right, whether it's down one way or down the other way, that's a lot of weightlifting those muscles are doing on a daily basis. If the head is forward, it can be projected forward. So we can actually have a, you know, like if you've got a really strong chin, then psychosomatically we would say you're a doer. You actually, you know, on the body, on the face, the chin is the feet. And so you're a boots and all kind of person. So you literally lead with that strength of the jaw and the chin. But what that can do is it can put you out there. So you're not leading with your heart, you're actually leading with your jaw. And that puts, if we all stretched our neck out that way to lead with our jaw, it really compresses up under the base of the skull. So it's super important to bring your chin back. But some people also lead with their mental zone. So they're headlong into things, literally. And that also puts the head forward. If perhaps they've got a receding chin where there's less energy in that physical zone, they might tuck it in because their mind's stronger. So all these things create a lot of tension around the neck and go down into these 2 emotional release trigger points. So Of course, we're carrying the weight of the world. The atlas is the vertebrae right up the top of the spine. So the atlas was carrying the world on his shoulders. So literally, all of that heaviness in the mind, or all that dialogue that we're carrying, all of those stories we're carrying around, this is part of the emotional release trigger points to release that. Sometimes they can be so overdeveloped, especially if people do a lot of weightlifting, or they've built their muscles very strong in that area. You might even need to be using your elbows on that point to help release. But it's good to help them become, your clients and yourself, become aware of whatever responsibilities that you might be shouldering. Shoulders are a common place of injury, of tearing, the ligaments that support the shoulders. So one of the big things to become aware of is to actually use your mind to become aware of the shoulder blade. The shoulder blade is the protector of the shoulder. So if you keep your awareness, teach your clients, keep their awareness with their shoulder blades, so that the movement that is happening from their hands all the way up to the neck, through this area here, through this point, is actually engaging through the shoulder blade, supporting and protecting the shoulders. If there are injuries around the AC or around the rotator cuff, then it can be a person's body that's also helping them come back to the point of balance, which is their heart. So the mind might be overriding so many things to do with the body and just not listening to how that body could be feeling. Maybe they are feeling too much under pressure or feeling burdened. So if the shoulders are up, it's too much, I can't take any more. If they're really dragged down, it could be, I've been carrying the load for so long. You know, a loss of energy going on there. So the shoulders tell us a lot, and this can help someone reconnect their mind to their body, their head to their heart, their thoughts to their feelings. And the third emotional release point, because these are all, as I said, main tonic points of the body, tonic muscles of the body. So again, tension causes back pain, reproductive and digestive issues. So when we look at the diagram in the top left corner, we can see how far that psoas major extends, attaching right up into the lumbar vertebrae, and the psoas minor coming down, going right through towards that pubic bone, or connecting onto the pubic bone. These are the psoas muscles are the main muscles responsible for taking us from being on all fours to standing. So they're super, super significant. And it's often referred to, the psoas muscle, as a muscle that can be triggering anxiety and fear, because it's right down where our instinctual primordial feelings are. So there's a lot of stuff that's held down here in this region of the body, in the pelvic area. And there's a lot of things that can happen to people. As we've said, the tension causes back pain, reproductive and digestive issues. So, and you know, how we're moving around those areas and how aligned our hips are. So it's really about our standing in the world, not so much, I mean, that could relate to our legs and feet as well. I understand that. But it's such a major area of where everything starts to extend out and flow down the legs. like the shoulder points flow down the arms. This is where it's flowing down from that lumbar, down the legs, and how we're relating to our instinctual side and our creativity. It also sends messages into the central nervous system. So that's the connection that we have with the flight-fight responses that can get trapped into this area as well. And the further development of the flight responses that we have. This, you can see how the lower part of it attaches to the inner thigh. So a lot to do with our mobility. So if someone is really stuck and feeling really trapped or blocked in their capacity to create those things that are important for them, or to feel maybe their vital life force, then there's things that we can do around this area. So the psoas major is the easiest one to get to. It's not an easy muscle to get to, but the easiest one to get to. And we can do that one on ourselves by literally bringing our fingertips inside the pelvic area, inside the hips. So I'm hoping you can see what I'm doing. If we feel where our hip bone is, and then press in and lean forward, so you're literally leaning forward. So on a client, you'd have them on their back and you'd be pushing down onto that area, having their knees bent and pushing down to release that psoas area. And that is often felt directly around into the lumbar area as well. So, you know, and we can see if the pelvis is aligned or whether it's misaligned, whether there's more tension on one side than the other. And there's many reasons, you know, that can happen. Driving, they spend a lot of time driving, or they sit with their legs crossed all the time or frequently. That can cause a different alignment around that area too. That this is where you can get some really deep emotional releases happening around here, because there's so much that gets so much fear, so much pain, and so much sadness and grief that can be held around that whole pelvic region. So, regulating your nervous system. Co-regulation is something that, as we learn to regulate ourselves and center and ground and be present, we have the capacity, as we regulate our own nervous system, over time and practice, you start to become so present that people around you benefit. That's called co-regulation. So you might experience, if you can think of somebody in your life that you really feel calm and settled around, and you have a sense that they're really quite grounded. They're probably co-regulating your nervous system. And if you've had a lot of trauma in your life, and I certainly have, so I understand it, it takes time. It takes time to retrain ourselves. So a beautiful exercise to do is just placing our hands, the image that I picked here, she's got her fingertips on her heart chakra, or on a heart center, right in the center of the sternum, which is another release point actually. But it's comforting. So in mindfulness, it's one of the areas that just, we used to say hand to heart was a terminology that we're using when we're, you know, I'm telling the truth here, I'm being really transparent and honest here, hand to heart, you know. But in actual fact, you might even be able to think back to times where you put your hand in the center of your chest, and it's a way of self-soothing. And if we combine, it doesn't matter which hand it is, you know, just do whatever feels right for you. We can go into systems of left, right, but just do what feels right for you. Listen to your body and trust your intuition, your instinct. And the other hand is placed just on the lower belly, just below the navel. So the thumb is around about the navel area. This is very regulating in a hand position. It's very balancing. And you can, as body workers, you can actually place your hands on a person in this area to regulate, just as you can slip one hand in under the occipital area of the head and place one there, and maybe either choose the heart or this area in the lower belly. There's so much that goes unconscious if we can't deal with things at the time. Let's go back one. And when it happens, especially so much between 0 and 2, even pre-verbal, if we're not able to process these things, 0 to 7, then we make decisions, I guess, or we get very creative about what to do with that. So we either start to loop around things that we haven't been able to process that become triggers. We develop different behavioral things that don't really serve us in the aging process. So now we're understanding so much more about disassociation, how we have simply just swept things under the carpet. So all these little lumps over time, if they don't come to the surface naturally to get our focus and attention, then they kind of implode, and that's part of how the dis-ease occurs. So people who eat well, they seem to be doing all the right things, and then suddenly, because their body is healthy, for the large part, suddenly end up with 4th-stage cancer, and you wonder, oh, how did that, you know, what happened? But there's obviously different levels of trauma that, even though we might be aware of, have actually happened in our lives, there's still layers of it that has not been released out of the body. So that's what's so important about being able to find, and there's many ways. This is just our way of being able to get in touch with coming back home to yourself. I noticed that there's some of our new students, there's some of our graduate students, there's even a master student. So if I could just perhaps ask you to share, and I don't mind which one of you chooses to speak. It's just such an opportunity for people coming on board that have never ever heard of the Psychosomatic Therapy College or the psychosomatic therapy training that we offer. Just share whatever you feel to share. I'm putting them on the spot.
I'll share. How are you?
Well,
so I'm a remedial massage therapist. I've been doing it for 4 years. I work in a chiropractic clinic, and one of the things that was getting me very frustrated is just seeing the same people each week with the same problems, even though they would undergo different type of therapies, you know, and of course you feel so frustrated of not being able to help them. And it was just there when I started to understand the importance of the emotional body, for saying it so. But I'm very interested about it because I feel that that's the source of everything. in a way, the therapy, when you're a remedial massage, I feel in a way that I'm kind of like an advocate for them, that if they don't resolve the emotional issue going on there, it's not going to be a real change. Psychosomatic therapy, especially for people with trauma, when you dissociate from your body. I do that. I had complex PTSD, and I didn't know how serious it can affect my body until I started to do these practices and realize how much emotion were stored in my body without me noticing. So yeah, I feel that there's a lot of feel there.
Yeah, thank you, Rosario. My own background is that my father was in the Second World War, and he was in the biggest battle in the Pacific. And my mother lost her mother when she was 2. So I understand complex trauma. And I can look back at my life now, being young when I got involved in massage. It was only about the 2nd year of a wave in Queensland of different colleges even offering remedial massage as a qualification. My sister had suicided. She was 30 and she left 2 children behind. So again, lots of trauma and in that history in the family. And I was endeavoring to just do something because I felt so disappointed, I suppose, that I did not understand that someone so close to me was going through so much pain. And I was not aware of that my older sister was in so much pain and I wasn't aware of it. So it was a turning point in my life, and that has led me into this field of work with clients. So, but along the way, I've learned how disassociated from my own body I was, and the effects of trauma and things. It's been an amazing, amazing journey. And that's why it is something that is so close to my own heart, because I've definitely lived it. And I think that's another thing that assists us with our clients as we're working through our own issues, as you've expressed as well. You're very authentic. You know, people understand that people get that you understand them. You really do have a sense, you know, of. And I believe also that it shows them that they too can overcome those things and start to really achieve the regulation and, you know, to go on and live. We're all meant to live a happy life. No, we're, you know, that's what life's really about. It's about the joy, and we can't feel the joy and the pain if we're holding on to so much memory, even unconsciously and subconsciously, of pain in our bodies, because that pain will, if it's been emotional pain, it will eventually sink down into becoming physical pain in the body, because the body simply just wants us to let go of those things we've been holding on to. Yeah. We used to call it the missing link, because when we started psychosomatic therapy, Herman and I, was very much about looking at, I was the body worker and he'd studied a lot of NLP and clinical hypnosis, and he went and did a lot of research back with Wilhelm Reich's work and Stanley Kellerman, and just understanding more and more and more about the physical body and that connection with the mind. So I do find it very interesting when people would say, oh, psychosomatic therapy, back at how it was, or the word psychosomatic back how it was in the 70s, was that it was all in your head. It was like an insult in a way. It's just all happening in the head. It's happening in your mind. But the mind is everywhere in the body. And that's what I'm loving about the evolution of understanding the somatic and the connection with the psycho, or the psyche, the soul, that it is happening in the body, and even anxiety. I've heard someone recently saying anxiety isn't happening in the body, it's happening in the nervous system. And I thought, where do you think the nervous system lives? It was just an interesting, okay. Because that's all happening in the body too. So, you know, the body is our home. It's where we reside. And so you can never know too much about the body, and it's such an alive, intelligent system. There's so many systems in the body. It's amazing. One more opportunity to share before we go on to the next.
I'm a remedial therapist, same as Murray, and I did my Cert 3 as soon as COVID started. I got in touch with Murray, and in my mind I was thinking, I thought we're going to get a lot of people have some serious problems if they're not connecting with their body at this time because of everything that was happening through all that COVID stuff. So anyway, that's when I started studying with Mari. And I remember that one of the first things that she said to me was that she said to us that you'll never look at someone the same again, because once you start, if you're already a remedial therapist, you know how the system kind of works and the muscles and everything like that. But it's that mind connection. I call it joining the dots. It's like people are always thinking about, about this, I've got a sore knee, I've got a sore, and what this does change in your mind is that it's not just a physical aspect, it's an emotional response. So you can start working with people who always come to you with, I've got a sore back or I've got a sore knee. And this makes you think about, okay, well, it's not just you hurt your back in a car accident. Okay, why is there a weakness? So you learn all about all the parts of the body and how they are in an emotional response. So say if people have got bad knees, it's shock absorbers of life. So most people walk around with like upright, stiff, their knees back, and they wonder why they've got a lower back issue. And that's what this has taught me, is that you're not just treating the muscles, you're treating the connection between the mind and body. And I've been doing it for a few years now, maybe a year and a half, 2 years. And to change people's thinking about what is going on in their body is such a transformation and it makes you have to do the work. As Murray knows, it took me probably a bit longer than everyone else, but it really has to sink in for you to know. You just start to live it. You start to live. Why is it that your body is the way that it is?
You drop into yourself, don't you? You just
you drop into yourself. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. So then it makes sense but to know the different parts of the body, of focus of the mind and balance in the emotion and the structure of physical, that creates performance, which alignment and awareness creates performance. So you need that to be able to heal yourself and to heal other people, to help heal other people. So yeah, it's really, it has totally changed my life, and people around who have been learning about it, their lives as well. It's amazing.
Wow. Thank you so much, Jo. I really appreciate you sharing that, because it's rich, a lot of people come into this because they don't even really know why they're attracted to it, but something jumps out. I find that the clients really get so much value out of the work, and just, as I said, being seen as a whole person,
Yeah.
how it all fits, as you said. So this is what we do in the Certificate 3 in Psychosomatic Therapy. Read the story of your client's life through their body, through their face, through their hands, through their feet. It's a system of body mapping, and we do that over the first 6 days, if it's face-to-face. And the majority of that, some of the body reading needs to be done face-to-face. So we don't do all of that online. So we have the capacity, once you are learning to read someone or understand that body mapping system, that you meet your clients in their authentic selves, allowing them to know and love themselves more completely. So, I mean, Herman's passion was, if he could just help people to learn to love themselves, because you're with yourself 24/7, how you think about yourself, how you view yourself, how you speak to yourself in your self-talk 24/7 is more impacting than anything that's ever happened in our past, because we're just replaying a lot of that, and we're re-traumatizing and we're re-abusing ourselves. So it needs to stop. And you do get a lot of tools in this course on how to do that. Look at every level of the human experience as part of the development of the core issues they're experiencing, and read the main archetypes of somatic distress in the human structure, their associated emotional, mental, and behavioral patterning, and the possibilities for change. And there's infinite possibilities, infinite. We just need to choose it and be willing to do whatever it takes. Develop your intuitive intelligence. So this is a course that it can be frustrating for some people, because there is a strong level of intuitive intelligence, or even intuitive education, one of our master students calls it. So it's learning to trust your intuition as well, and develop that rapport within yourself. Experience and learn the precise points on the body to stimulate in order to rebalance the client's body-mind, clear energetic blocks or emotional releases, as often experienced as pain or disease, and reconnect your client to their innate healing power, because the body's intelligent and their natural state of being, releasing the cellular memory. So some people have very clear remembrances, and other people, they don't need to know. I often say there's no need to go digging up the past. It's going to come, it's going to surface. So when you are ready, when your clients are ready to deal with that, it'll surface and create powerful energetic shifts and healing. So it does bring me to the point of you as a practitioner, or to be a practitioner in it, is you go through everything. So, and you do go through everything that you're introducing your clients to. So it's something that you have fully experienced, and we love that tri-level learning of being a client yourself, as well as learning to be the therapist, as well as facilitating and holding space. And we've got some beautiful, sweet reviews. Tash worked with me for 9 years, and she has done some of the training. Jenny completed hers. It's just about fully certified. So she's almost across the line. And Tani was one of our recent clients at a clinic. So she experienced what it was like to have the emotional release bodywork. Oh, some of our graduates. From some of them are international graduates as well that came to Australia and got their full certification here, and others from different states, WA, Queensland, Far North Queensland, Victoria. So thank you all so much for your time. I'll say goodbye. Good night.